1, 2,
Standing
go.
by. You know it.
Here we go.
Hey everybody, you're listening to and watching, if you're joining us on the live stream, the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
And I'm Steve Morey.
and we are your hairy heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy heavy homo to listen in. Or as I mentioned, if you're joining on the live stream viewing. That was weird. And
Viewing on
this is
7
all
second
weird.
tape delay.
I'm just saying this is all weird because we didn't know if we were going to do a show because of the holidays and everything. Caleb's in Dallas. He's about to see his first NFL game ever. And Ryan's away. I think he's home, but he's doing stuff. So it's just the two of us tonight. And we were fortunate enough during this week to see Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is the 15th and final film in the DCEU series of films.
Yep. It started back in the heady years of 2013 with Man of Steel. And who would have thought that 10 years later, it's already it ended as a franchise. They had such high hopes, as did I. I was hoping for a long running, extended connected universe, but things happen, Blockbusters aren't as easy to come by. And unfortunately with the cost of making a lot of these, for better or worse, I guess a lot of what DC and WB kind of thought, or WB Discovery kind of thought, was like, hey, maybe we can start over and do something different. And yeah, why not?
They're gonna do it.
Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the majority of the DCU movies. Different,
The only film that I can say I would not tell people to see is Suicide Squad. That's the only film in that mix. Wonder Woman 84 comes close to that, but Suicide Squad is the only film I would say, yeah, don't bother seeing that.
The David Ayers one,
Yeah, the first one, not the Suicide Squad,
the Suicide
Suicide Squad, the Academy Award winning Suicide
Squad.
Yeah.
And I agree with that too. And again, you can make a lot of arguments for maybe this film or that film would have been better if the director's vision was allowed a little bit more, if there's less meddling from a corporate level. But honestly, when you look at Marvel movies, after probably Iron Man 2, there was a lot more corporate meddling, and some of them are still spectacular. And some of the DC ones were spectacular, even with corporate meddling or whatever, however you.
I don't think corporate meddling is a problem from a continuity standpoint. What I do think is a problem is filmmaking by committee.
Yeah.
And sometimes
please everybody.
And sometimes the corporate meddling might be one or two people.
True.
And I think with the majority of the Marvel films, I think people were still able to stick to their creative vision generally. That may have been a problem in some of the executions of the recent films. Don't know, but superhero films right now, they're in a financial lull.
Yeah.
I mean, there's underperforming, but that's another thing that drives me nuts is people aren't talking about the non-superhero stuff bombing.
Yeah.
Napoleon lost millions. And it's not like a situation like the Marvels or Quantumania where it's going to have an afterlife on on Turner and these other channels that USA that will show them. I mean, just think of
It's
how
not
many
going to
times
become a cult classic.
somebody may have been flipping channels and would have seen Hellboy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're constantly rerun in that
Yeah.
area, and a film like Napoleon, that doesn't have a chance in
No.
in a setup like that. And
I
people
mean,
aren't
it's
talking about that. Fast and the Furious had its first relative financial bomb this year,
yeah.
and no one's talking about that.
Yeah, or the fact that and I did read a couple articles making fun of Scorsese after what was it, Flowers of the Autumn Moon,
Yeah,
after that made less money than the Marvels, and that was like it was opening
yeah, it wasn't
at
even
across from,
close. I mean,
didn't even come close, and lost money and lost
yeah, yeah. I mean, that
high
wasn't even
percentage of
close.
its whatever.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, if we're going to talk about the quality of a movie based on how much money it makes at the box office, then okay, then probably 90% of the movies made this year were like the big movies were terrible because they didn't make much money. There were only a few certified hits this year, and
mhm.
interestingly enough, WB has the hat trick for Christmas. With The Color Purple as number one, number two being Aquaman, and number three being Wonka,
Yeah.
holding over from earlier this month.
Mhm.
So, hey, they won. They
And this
won.
year with a much needed hit with Barbie.
Yeah. Oh,
Much
Barbie.
needed hit
Yeah.
for with Barbie. So
Barbie was an enormous hit for anybody that nobody saw coming, really.
mhm.
Except for, I'm sure,
Not
some
to that
people were
level.
like.
Not to that level, no.
But let's talk about, actually. We did have a comment here from Dan Bryan, who's joined us. Dan, hi. What? No Blue Beetle sequel? It's like,
Yeah, I
come
don't
on.
think there's going to be a Blue Beetle sequel with those
No,
numbers. I think you may have
unfortunately.
actor and the character appear again, given some of the mentions that James Gunn has offered. Specifically, him very outwardly stating that Blue Beetle is the first new DC hero, though
Yeah.
Super Legacy will be the first new DC film. So I think there may be some threads that either in casting or in some general storyline that may follow. But it's a coda. But I also
Yeah.
thought as a coda, it was a relatively positive one. And
Oh, absolutely. I loved it.
one of the things I'd like to get into with you. And it's also really saddening for me to see some people, friends,
Mhm.
when I was doing theater, we used to joke like the theater intelligentsia, i.e. your friends, um,
Right.
having severely negative
Yeah.
responses to this film. And there are points where I'm like standing back. It's like, look, this is not the kind of film that the next great filmmaker is going to see this film and say, I want to do that. I mean, that's not going to happen. It wasn't
Yeah.
conceived in that context. But
It's not
I'm
Osmosis
shocked at
Jones.
some of the negativity that's being thrown at this by people whose opinions I really pretty much value regularly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just a game of expectations. What we've
yeah.
been trained really to think about when we see a superhero movie in the universe of the superhero franchise that we follow, that we enjoy. And Dan had mentioned as well, Dan Bryan, that he really enjoyed Blue Beetle, and I really enjoyed it too. Was it the
Yeah.
best superhero movie I'd seen? No. Was it the best superhero movie I saw this year? No.
No.
But it was fun. It was fun. It was exciting. I love the cast.
Mhm.
And they did a fun thing with it without really needing to have it be part of a larger universe. And I think that might have been kind of to be honest, one of the reasons why I did enjoy it a little bit more than maybe I would have, is that I wasn't like, okay, so how's this connect with everything that was coming
Yeah.
before, and like this in this part and that part. And I think that's Marvel right now, Marvel and Disney are kind of in trouble because of that whole thing,
Yeah.
like creating these phases and these like 5-year plans for movies where, okay, well, now the main villain, we can't really use him anymore, so now we got to figure something out, course
Yeah.
correct. And
I also think
DC,
Marvel has been guilty of a few films that almost feel like a gateway to something else,
yeah,
and that it doesn't necessarily exist on its own. I think Age of Ultron was the most obvious example of that.
yeah, it was the bridge,
Yeah.
what's sort of a bridge film. It's like, okay, let's
Yeah.
have some Easter eggs in here because that's what's really important.
Yeah.
And Aquaman 2, Electric Boogaloo, or The Lost Kingdom. I think they dropped the 2 pretty early on.
Yeah.
The first time it got bumped, they just got rid of the 2 and just had the tagline. This one, yes, it's a sequel. But honestly, in terms of like the greater DC universe, there's not a lot that's being brought in here. There's no like hey Easter egg, or like, hey, look, that guy's coming in and it connects to that other movie or whatever. And I think reading some of the behind the scenes and some of the things that got cut, because both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton had filmed cameos that were then cut from the final, or at least the theatrical release. I think that was a good decision. I mean, I always loved being like, oh my gosh, look at so and so, and oh there's a reference to the Flash, and it would have been fun, but also it wasn't necessary, and I think people would have gotten the wrong idea. Like casual movie fans would have gotten the wrong idea, and maybe even super fans who were like super critical anyway would have been like, okay, well then how is this supposed to connect? But it didn't.
Well,
nothing.
it also was a situation from something I was reading that since everybody knew it was basically a chapter closing, that James Wan had a little bit more leeway than I think some other filmmakers did in the final cut in relation to it. Essentially, I mean, it operates more as a sequel to Aquaman than anything else.
Yeah, and there was also he had the chance to do more editing and more more work
because of being pushed back and
pushed back. They didn't know when was it going to be coming out before the Flash or after the Flash, and that's why they did both of those sort of Batman cameos filming anyway. And then afterwards, he was just sort of like, you know what, I don't need to put that in. It doesn't have to connect to a greater DC universe. That's over. That's done.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty cool.
All right, you're very good at the plot, so tell us about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is directed by James Wan, stars Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry Aquaman, alongside Patrick Wilson, Amber Heard, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Randall Park, Dolph Lundgren, Temuera Morrison, Martin Short, and Nicole Kidman.
Don't forget Jonathan Rhys Davies. Jonathan Rhys Davies.
I can forget him. He's a conservative nut job at this point.
Well, but at least in the in this movie, he's not.
Should have gotten Brian Blessed. All right, go on, Steve.
They are kind of like corollaries in terms of vocals.
I imagine they've lost parts to each other like hundreds of times.
I wanted to do the voiceover of that giant animated tree. Like, I could see that.
I could have been in Sliders.
Yeah. Cool. So basically, Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom opens up with our hero Arthur Curry kind of juggling his roles as a new family man, as just a general hero, but then also the King of Atlantis, which has a lot more, administrative, bureaucratic responsibilities than he was expecting, and he's getting a lot of pushback from the council. He's finding it really difficult to kind of split his time on land, at the lighthouse with his dad and their new baby, and Amber Heard as Mira, who shows up a couple times in this movie. But something really is starting to affect the oceans as well as the surface world. Temperatures are rising. The seas are becoming really acidic. Essentially, climate change has been accelerated to the point where instead of the Earth having, decades or centuries to really address this, it's coming down to months, weeks, sometimes by the end, days. And it's all come down to the fact that Black Manta, Aquaman's biggest nemesis has awakened an ancient evil from the Lost Kingdom, the fabled Seventh Kingdom of Atlantis. Um, and it's up to Arthur Curry, it's up to Aquaman, with the help of his brother Orm, the former ocean master, who he has to spring from prison, to find out where Black Manta is, stop his scheme, and then ultimately stop the rise of this fabled and horribly dangerous and bad for the world and everything lost kingdom from rising again. Yeah, I think that's pretty much a quick sum of it. There's a lot more. There's a lot of punching. A lot of punching happens. Lots of punches. Punching. Lots of mentions of lots of uses of the word dude. And brothers. Not as many uses of the word bro as Avatar 2 though. Avatar 2 had, I think, hit the top of the bro scale in terms of the use of that word. But it's definitely a movie about these two half brothers who don't necessarily really like each other much, but definitely share a diet plan and love for their mom and really love to hit things. So it's fun. I think this was just a really fun popcorn superhero movie that we haven't really seen much of. Like, I mean, there's
and also I have to say for a DC film, a DCEU film, let's put it that way, this is one of the more comic booky ones.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a lot of nods to Aquaman's history. I could have used like 2 more hours of both Storm and Topo. Topo being traditionally in the comics his pet octopus, and Storm being his horse initially from the Filmation cartoons. I just loved that stuff, and the more the film went that direction, the happier I was. The only part that I would have really jettisoned was the very end where the Lost Kingdom king was coming back to life. I've seen that 30 times in 30 different films. I've seen that scenario, and I guess I shouldn't complain about it as we're saying it's a popcorn movie, and popcorn movies are known for repetition. But
like I've seen Willow, and this part at the end was kind of Willow.
I felt there were things that they could mine that were more appropriate to the character and the concept than what we saw. I didn't need to see Underwater Mummy.
That's it. Yes, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
So what'd you think of Black Manta in this movie? I mean, he was very yummy. I mean, there's a lot of like sweaty shirtless dude, like a lot of wet shirtless dudes in this movie, and he at one point was the wettest and most shirtless, if that's a thing, if that's possible. I mean, I thought he was good, but I think he had less chance to be him in this. Like
it felt like I'm so angry because the script says so. And he definitely has motivation for hating Aquaman. I mean, it's definitely in place. And it definitely was expressed later on in the film. But I don't know, it just that almost felt like it could have been a generic villain there. And I was a bit surprised at that. And I was also a bit surprised, like, where does he get so many henchmen? That didn't make sense. If it was like a cause like Hydra that people are dedicated to, then I understand that. But that kind of took me out of it, that there'd be this many people that are dicks to this level. I mean, and especially with that kind of conceit, I mean, pirates kill each other all the time, and there wasn't that dynamic there
I don't think. Yeah, they weren't
I think
very.
it could have been. See, now as we're talking about it, we're like chipping at the holes. But like,
Well, so yeah, let's chip it out the holes. But like, I
really
think
enjoy it.
I understand in like movie logic, Black Manta here is a Bond villain. He's a
Yeah,
Bond villain. He has a very like, I guess like loose motivation. Like I
but
need
the
to take
thing is,
revenge on Aquaman
with the
because he killed my dad.
best Bond films, the villain is the most interesting character in the film, apart from Bond. We don't have that
Absolutely.
here. It's
No,
if any
absolutely.
character is interesting, it's Orm.
Yeah.
If there's any character's arc that is something that you get a reward out of, it's Orm.
Yeah, I absolutely I agree with that. But going back to the sort of like, here's Black Manta. He has this massive underground base that's kind of like ancient high tech in a volcano. Like, I mean, this is right here. This is like the definition of a generic Bond villain movie, movie
Yeah.
trope here, where it's like, here's this, scheming guy who's basically going to destroy the planet for whatever reason. Like, I'm going to make it unlivable for all of us. Like, why?
Right.
To get back at this one guy because he killed my
Yeah.
dad, so I'm gonna kill everybody else. Like, okay, you're not just punishing him, you're punishing
And though they have,
everybody, including
and
yourself.
though they have like the conceit of him being somewhat manipulated by the Lost Kingdom and the
Absolutely, yeah,
staff,
that's in there.
uh, yeah, when there's the break from that, there's no difference in the character.
Right. And Randall Park in here as sort of like a conflicted scientist who, is essentially using Black Manta's money to fund his research and then gets pulled in and is unable to
Mhm.
leave. Also makes a lot of super weapons for some reason. You know, he's a fun character, not necessarily important until probably the very end when
Mhm.
he has his little hero moment. But Jenny Zhao, who plays Stingray, one, I don't think she's named uh
Yeah, I don't think she
at
is.
all in the movie. Like, you just find out she's Stingray at the end in the credits. um and she's pretty cool, but she doesn't get a lot of moments
Mhm.
or dialogue really. And it's kind of like, okay, she's this badass like hench woman who almost kills Orm. And it's like, it's one of the first times where the brothers are fighting and punching things together to like save each other. um you kind of feel bad for her, but then she's like, oh, let me go back on the ship and continue the evil plan. Like, it's just okay.
Mhm.
um but if you use sort of general popcorn movie logic, it's totally cool. She's the number two who's got to survive just so long so that she becomes like another, final obstacle for the heroes to overcome before they get to the bad guy, who of course isn't the real bad guy. The real bad guy is the guy who's coming to life at the end, who's actually the easiest to defeat. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's popcorny. I love the interaction between Orm and Arthur. I think it's a ton of fun. And like you said, the arc with him, like sort of the change, even literally physical change from where he starts,
Mhm.
in the movie into to where he ends. It's pretty fantastic and has the most
Mhm.
growth. Whereas, Aquaman, he's there to like be funny, quip a couple things, bounce his pecs, punch things, and then like, okay, I'm cool.
But
By the end.
there was a lot of things in the film where the thing that he struggles with is he thinks he's in over his head between a
Yeah.
baby, a kingdom, also, effectively being a superhero still.
Mhm.
We do see that in the beginning with the pirates, and that I thought
Yeah.
was a really cool way to introduce the action.
With
Um,
the daddy's smashing the pirates. I love that. I thought
yeah.
that was cute.
Um, uh, yeah, and I thought, Momoa, this is the role he was born to play. I mean,
Absolutely.
this is the role he was born to play. I do think, that it may be a circumstance for some people that they may enjoy him more in cameos or supporting parts than as the central character. But I thought a lot of that was well handled.
Mhm.
One thing that's been talked about, and we were even talking about this in our pre-show, about it's been fairly well publicized that there were a lot of things that were cut out of this film. Principally being cameos that were filmed with both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton as Batman, depending upon which direction the film universe went. And I think the film, that probably would have bogged down stuff a bit. I liked it better that it functions primarily as a sequel to Aquaman and not the 15th DCEU film.
Right.
But also with some of the very well publicized issues with Amber Heard. I think poor Nicole Kidman got the shit end of the stick with that, because it seems a lot of their action was together.
Right.
That it isn't. I mean, it's not a cameo. I mean, it's especially towards the end, she has significant part to play. But it's obvious that there was more Amber.
Absolutely. I mean, she's the number 2 bill. She's number 2 in billing. Or originally was, and unfortunately, because of personal choices, and relationships, her presence in the movie was considered not a good thing. But of course, they couldn't cut it out completely. You can't just say like, and Amber Heard went back to her planet, off screen, or like she died, something, whatever. They had to keep her in there, and of course, they had Nicole Kidman in there, probably having most of her scenes together with her. Too bad. But speaking of Nicole Kidman, I need to put this out there for anybody else who has seen this in an AMC theater. For the past 3 years, we have been plagued. I'm going to use that word, plagued, with Nicole Kidman telling us that we need this, all of us, when the lights begin to dim, and we're transported to a place where blah, 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 that did not play before Aquaman 2. It played when we saw Wonka the other week, but it did not play before Aquaman 2. And it's either because AMC was like, it's just too much Nicole Kidman in one movie. We gotta like cut it somewhere else. Or maybe this signifies the end of that. And for 2024 will be the year where AMC moviegoers are not going to have to sit through, Nicole Kidman walking through a puddle and coming up and then like doing a speech at the theater with like the weirdest accent edits I've ever heard. But anyway, I digress.
I don't care. I mean, I don't care.
You don't go to AMC.
A half out of my life. No, I go to AMC's, but it's a minute and a half out of my life. I don't, that doesn't bother me.
Oh, hey, we have a little pop-in cameo of John Runyon here. Comic Book Bears Assemble. Hey, John. But yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this movie. Yes, if you think about it too much, there's like, why did they do that? That doesn't make sense. But the plot,
What'd you think of the special effects?
I thought they were good.
Yeah, I thought they were very good. I was also very surprised to see that there were 8 visual effects houses that worked on it, because it did feel very unified. And I think we've talked about that before with with the recent films, which have all underperformed, Blue Beetle, the Marvels, and this, that they felt like like a very unified feel, where other films earlier in the year, like Quantumania and The Flash, did feel like a hodgepodge of who could get the work done,
True. Yeah. I mean, and that is one of the things that I really appreciate about Aquaman, is that the effects fit the setting. So like, it wasn't like oh my god, we're gonna do some kind of crazy stuff, and it felt good. The motion blur worked, so nothing looked overly fake and weird. But I loved gosh, I've forgotten the octopus's name. I think the design and animation of him was great.
Topo.
Just Topo. I thought Topo was hilarious.
I also am I'm a bit sad that there hasn't been the promotional push that other films have gotten, because this film is very toyetic, and I would love, like, the Aquaman figure I got that I showed on the last episode, I would love this guy with a storm. And if I were 6 years old, I would be playing with that for 4 months.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A little light up thing, you know,
Yeah.
that goes in water, and
Yeah.
that would be so much fun.
Yeah. So
You know, and
the
that's
film is very toyetic, and
yeah. I mean, this is
not
definitely a
every
movie
DCEU film has been.
because most of
So
them are dark. Most of them
yeah.
are like everything's in shadow, everything's really grim. This one didn't dwell on the grimness. I mean, yes, there was some of that, but the
Yeah.
colors in general much brighter.
Yeah.
You know, lots of blues, lots of bright, you know, bright neon colors, lots of light ups. The one part that I think was a little bit, I mean, it might consider it superfluous. Might have been just kind of like a little weird. Was when they went to the pirate kingdom, like the pirate
Mhm.
outpost, with all like the different creatures and the different, you know,
Yeah. And that was
you know,
thankfully short.
it was very
Yeah.
short. Yes, there was a cantina band, of course there was, singing
Yeah.
some kind of
There
like
was
jazz
this nice
thing.
noodles. Yeah.
So there was this
Yeah.
nice noodles, um, who kept playing the entire time. But that was Martin Short had his little cameo there,
Yeah.
as the what was his name? I don't even remember the name
I
of the
don't even
creature.
remember the
The head of the pirate base was I mean, really served very little purpose. To be honest, it wasn't all that great, but it did sort of like cement the start of you know, Orm and Arthur kind of starting to mesh together and work as a team.
Mhm.
Because that was like very early on after he broke him out of prison.
Yeah.
But I just thought I thought the whole thing,
Kingfish.
I was kind of hoping that Nanaue would make a little pop in, like there's King Shark over there in the corner. Woo! Look at it. No,
Yeah.
didn't even do that.
Yep.
But the rest of the movie I think was well paced and was fun, kept attention pretty easily.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like a good, I would say, kids movie. Like if I were like 8 years old seeing this, like you said, like if they had more toys for this, like if I was
Yeah.
I'd be like, yes,
Yeah.
I want everything. I want the Happy Meal toys. I want to go to Toys R Us and get myself a glow up
Yeah.
Stormy bath toy. Like I want that, you know. But
Now, also to address the issue of, you know, we said it a couple times, it's closing chapter, it's the coda. I felt it ended the universe on a very positive note. And I liked seeing that because, you know, some of the films have, you know, tripled up on the grim and gritty. And some of the films have ended with question marks. And this one is a definitive ending for this character, at least. And if that is the tone for the 15 films and Peacemaker, you know, that I'm satisfied. Let me put it that way. I'm satisfied with this as the film that ends it.
Yeah, I was happy with it, and I think the you know, the mid credits bumper was just an extra goofy cherry on top.
Yeah.
With ordering a burger and getting a roach. I thought it was a fun way to go and to end things for the DCEU, especially because where it started. If you go all the way back to Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, I really loved Man of Steel. I know it's very controversial. You know, people say like, "Oh, you can't love it because he kills somebody in it." I thought it was. I really loved that movie. I loved Henry Cavill in the role. I thought it felt epic. It was really great.
Yeah.
But it was also a dark, gritty, like it was a shaded wash over the entire film. It had that sort of like gray blue, you know, light filter on, and just was kind of like dark. Well, here's this movie with a blue filter because it's underwater, but it's a bright blue filter.
Yeah. And I think,
you see a lot.
You know, my biggest problem with Man of Steel is it was joyless. And I even said this on the Movie Bears that long ago, 11 years ago. Jesus. You know, that it was joyless. And this is filled with joy in parts, you know.
Absolutely.
That, like I say, it's a nice way to go out.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
Steve Bubba just popped in here. I appreciate you guys saying A2 was fun. People have been falling all over themselves to dump on this movie. You've just encouraged me to maybe
yeah.
see it after all. Good. Yeah,
Now
please do.
let me just address this because I have to say something. Like, I'm not the best arbiter. We've talked about this. Like growing up, I had the Superman films, and that was it. So I think y'all are crazy. Y'all should be very happy that we have, even if we have like clunkers in the mix. That there are multiple comic book films every year. I think that's something that should be celebrated. They're not all going to be gems. That they're even getting made just astounds me. In some ways, I'm not the best arbiter, but at the same token, some people get so wrapped up in the expectation, that this has to be made for me, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get every box checked. It just isn't. But on top of that, it's 2 hours plus of your life. So what? I just, I mean, I just think of like The Last Jedi was the most extreme example of this, of my childhood being raped. It's like, well, you had a weird childhood, dude.
I have my childhood in a box over here, and I accidentally watched The Last Jedi and turned around and somebody was raping my child.
Yeah. But
yeah,
Steve, thank you for that comment. I hope you do see it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do like it, hey, maybe you'll agree with us on some of these points.
Yeah, and if anything, you get to see at least 3 very beefy, shirtless, wet men.
Mm-hmm. And one who goes from skinny to beefy in a novel way.
Oh yeah. Orm's sort of like physical transformation.
That was very cool. Don't want to spoil it for people, but that was really cool.
And gets a haircut. Yeah. I don't know where. Like, did he have like clippers in his?
It's just like one of those things. Also, like Volko's death. You're like, oh
yeah, Volko.
Dead. Yeah, that was like
maybe Volko was the Poochie in this movie.
That was one of the bits that got cut out.
Yeah.
And also, for people, know that you had mentioned, this was like a bit of a sausage fest. And I think the core story, of it being the two brothers working together in an unexpected way, I think, wouldn't allow that. But also some mention should be made for India Moore, a trans actress. Having
India Moore
having a role in this.
Yeah, she has a bit part as the head of the council.
But it's important because it kind of motivates a lot of stuff that gets Arthur going. So
and shout out to my husband Jason, who while we were watching the movie and got to the credits, he was like, Dolph Lundgren was in this? Like, yes, he played the King of Zebul. Which one was the King of Zebul? The one with the red hair, the beard, the only other like king other than like a giant crab?
Yeah.
Oh. So shout out to the costume and and hair designers. You made Dolph Lundgren completely unrecognizable to my So John Westhoff also popping by, throwing up the horns with the bear. Thank you for joining us, John. Nice to see you. But yeah, I will definitely be adding this movie to my digital collection, like I do with all,
Yeah, and I'll be getting it on home video since they're still putting them out.
Yeah. So it's fun. I think I'll definitely be pulling this movie out again.
A very good sign about this is that Oppenheimer has sold out of 2 printings of the home video. So that's a very good sign. It's going to be a niche thing. There's no way it's not. But when you see developments like that, I'm heartened a little bit.
And of course, all the heartache of Sony PlayStation owners who purchased. I can't remember the show. There was a show that was purchased digitally by a lot of PlayStation owners, and Sony has removed it completely from the store, and also from those customers' libraries. So they paid money for a rental.
Is it available through the things that it aligns with, like Voodoo and?
Oh yeah, you can purchase it again.
But if they purchased it, because
depends on the storefront.
Yeah, because I have Punisher Warzone and the animated Clone Wars movie that were it wasn't even a purchase. It was like one of those, put in a disc and you get the digital copy. And those I only have those on Apple TV. They didn't move over, but other stuff did.
Yeah,
like the early Marvel films, and
So there are also, and this also kind of goes towards the storefront idea too. I have some stuff that I've purchased through Microsoft Store, as an Xbox owner, that do not have, a digital copy available in other platforms. Like a lot of times when you purchase a movie, you can see it on Watch Anywhere. You've got it on, you've got it on Vudu. You've got it on whatever platform. Like it's available to you on multiple platforms, Amazon, etc.
Yeah, Apple.
But sometimes there's like a platform locked version of that file that might not even cost any different. And if you get that one and it's taken off of your platform, sorry, it's gone. You don't have another copy somewhere else. So, and Hassan Thalji, who's joined us, hey, Hassan, look at vinyl. It is making a comeback. Physical copies will never die. Absolutely true. So,
It's like, I can tell you that.
Got any vinyl back there, Bill? Just a couple.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh, the vinyl. The vinyl.
Yeah. But yeah. No. So bottom line. If you like superhero movies, if you like comic booky movies that are fun, you don't have to think a lot. It's popcorn and just
it's
nice
not
afternoon
going to change your life. It may be a bit of a disappointment from some of the previous films, because I do think the first Aquaman is just a much more focused and resonant film.
True.
But this is fine. Don't go in expecting, a cinematic experience that's going to change your life. If you're just looking to be entertained for 2 hours and 14 minutes or however long it is, that's the job.
You get Jason Momoa hamming it up to the maximum in this movie. He is not serious at all, except for one moment where, and the three of us who saw it, I saw it with Jason and with her friend Susan, all three of us burst out laughing at this point, which is not the right response. But there's a moment where they all come ashore. Black Manta has attacked Arthur's family's lighthouse. His father's lying there. The baby's been kidnapped. And
spoilers.
3 people in a row. Yeah, we've been spoiling this whole thing. Yeah. 3 people in a row. No! And then the next one. No! And then the next one. No! So like 3 no's to the heavens in a row with 3 different characters, and it was just the funniest moment. And I'm like, they went over. Like this was definitely done.
I had to pee really bad, so I only got the last 2 no's.
Oh no, there's only 2 no's.
They're going to be talking about. They're going to be talking about Atlan and this stuff. I can run and pee, but I
can run and pee, and you come back and it's just no. And by the way, everyone's okay. Everyone was fine.
Everyone's okay.
Everyone's okay. Nobody died.
It's all right.
It was just these three lightning crashing, rain coming down, flames in the background. No, in a row. So good, so funny. Anyway, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Billy, you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it, and if you're just looking to be entertained on a non-cerebral level, this does the trick. Yeah, that's all.
Absolutely.
And I'm so happy I got to talk to you this week, because we didn't know if we were going to do this. So
I know.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Holidays are weird, and but was able to. You saw it on Christmas, right?
Yeah, Christmas Day. That's
I saw
our tradition when we're home.
The next day.
Okay.
And wasn't very crowded, but I also saw an 11:05 a.m. screening.
Oh yeah, that's
usually won't. But when I was getting out, like the next screening was almost all sold out. Wonka had a big crowd. Color Purple had a big crowd. The films we were talking about before. I
Absolutely.
toyed with seeing Godzilla today. It was sold out.
Yeah.
At
Oh,
350.
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Can we say like the biggest surprise winner of 2023 other than Barbie Oppenheimer is Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
It did so well. And it's deserved. It's deserved how well it's done because I loved it and I think it is an amazing version of
now
Godzilla.
there's a black and white version coming out.
Too. Oh, is there? Oh, that'd be interesting to say.
Yeah.
It's probably going to have the same kind of like cool emotional impact while watching that the black and white version of Logan did. If you ever saw it in black and white, like that was.
Yeah, I saw that in black and white, and I also saw the Justice is Gray version of the
yeah, I watched that too. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, cool. Yay.
All right. Well, this is an abbreviated episode, but we were expecting that. Hope everybody had a great holiday.
Yes.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah and Kwanzaa.
Happy everything.
Happy everything.
Festivus for the rest of us.
Yeah, yes. Did you see the Festivus cake I posted?
Yes, love it.
Wasn't that awesome?
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, that was one of those things that's like, I have to get this out into the world. Yeah, it was very funny.
Oh.
All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping this show up, and we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up. We have a couple of segments that we get to before we sign off. And one is Geek Gets, and this is where we kind of show off things that we've gotten over the last, usually fortnight, because of our recording schedule. And yeah. Steve, do you have some Geek Gets you're going to show off there?
Well, today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save them for when we're all back next year.
Okay, I have a whole. All right, so
you go and do yours because I know you've got.
No. I have something else. Else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just gonna save my Geek Gets for next time. I'm good this time.
Okay, so implying that it's incestuous and it's comic book bearish and it's stuff we got for each other. Okay, I understand that. My Geek Get is Aquaman related.
Ooh.
So take a look at the vinyl Funko Pops for Atlanta. And Dr. Shin.
Ooh.
And Storm.
You did get your Storm. I
did get my toyetic Storm, but not the action figure type.
Yeah.
Which I need.
But you can still probably take that in the bath with you.
This is also closing a chapter for me in regards to the DC Extended Universe, because the DC Extended Universe was the one Funko Pop line that I collected. There's little one, when small ones come out, like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and Gotcha Man came out, I got all of them, but those are each like 3. I pick up, the stray Star Wars, the stray Marvel, the stray DC, the stray Hanna-Barbera, if there's some, but I don't collect them. I don't collect the lines. But I did collect the DCEU. I'm not going to be collecting whatever the new universe is because I don't have the room. And I'm sure they're going to be cool. But it basically started because I was a subscriber to the Legion of Collectors boxes that Funko offered for DC. They had other ones. The Star Wars was Smuggler's Bounty. The Marvel and Disney, they each had one. So there were these, effectively blind boxes that you didn't know what you were getting till that month. And very often they were exclusive pops. So just from that, I had like 7 or 8, that were DCEU. So I started collecting them. I don't have every pop, but I have every character. So there's I think 6 different Harley Quinns. I have 2, I have at least the character there. So, so this wraps up. This is the end of my collecting with this stuff. So.
End of an era.
Yeah, it is. It's the end of an era.
We do have a comment here from Dan Bryan. Bill Zanowitz, where do you keep all of this?
I have what is actually known as my comic book bunker. And Dan, if you just Google Zanowitz bunker, you'll see a few shots. And it is kind of breathtaking. But we have a condominium, a townhouse. I don't have a house, and I need a mansion. I really do. I really do. I mean, this stuff, even like rotating collections out and whatever. I really need. I need to be fabulously wealthy to really enjoy all this stuff.
Well,
I need to get out of New Jersey. I need to get out of as expensive a state as this, and I need a lot of space. I'd be happy with a big basement. Even a basement that you could finish, and as long as I'm not in a floodplain, I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Well, they do have, and I don't know if John Runyon knows about these, but out in the South Dakota Badlands, there's a whole area that used to be for U.S. Army munitions storage, and it's just they're almost like airport hangars.
Yeah.
And there's just tons of them, but they sell them now so that you can actually turn them into your home or bunker or whatever you want, and there's just tons of them out there. Yeah. So it's a good place to wall up.
Maybe when we all retire to the Comic Book Bears compound, and then we'll have shared collections, and
that's the dream.
I would get into like living by you guys in retirement. That would be fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would definitely, because just stick me in a chair, a stack of Justice Leagues from the 70s. I'm good. I'm good for the day. Make sure I get fed.
Well, we will do that. Let's plan on that.
All right, we're going to move on to our final segment. This is something we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar where we woof at something which may be a comic book, but it may also be a TV program or a film or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week goes out to Doctor Who. And, for those of you who saw our live show,
we forgot to do something.
I know you did.
You know we did?
I know you did, but I figured we wanted to move past it pretty quick.
All right, well, we still need to do it. We got the graphics.
Well, then, you know what? Let's rewind. Let's not.
You know what? Let's do the Woofs of the Week, and since this is a special episode, we'll do the Aquaman comic book Woof of the Week.
Ah, perfect.
There we go. I saved it. Okay, go.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's do. So how about I just do my Aquaman Woof?
And no, I think you should do your Woof of the Week, and then we'll end it with Aquaman.
Okay, that'll work. Okay, so my Woof
did the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the a couple weeks ago. We had our episode where we talked about the Star Beast, the first of the Doctor Who specials in December. And it's really fun. You can always listen to it, or you can see it on our YouTube channel or Facebook Live. You can go back on our page. But those specials continued. There were 3 main specials, and then the 4th special was the Christmas special for this year. And the Christmas special featured the first full episode of Ncuti Gatwa, the new Doctor Who. And so that is my wolf for this week. It is the Doctor Who Christmas special, or basically the first full episode of the new Doctor. And I thought this was fantastic. You have the new companion Ruby, who is fun and kind of cheeky, and kind of reminds me a little bit of Rose. Going all the way back, to the first couple of seasons of the rebooted Doctor Who. But she also is a very much her own character. She's definitely really excited. Is one of those companions that's really excited to get to travel with Ncuti Gatwa. And I think it's going to be a really good dynamic. The two of them just have such great chemistry. I'm really loving the new Doctor. I think he's great. And of course the sort of the monsters in this special, the goblins or time goblins, are fun, gross, and creepy, but also kind of goofy. So it's a little bit scary, but a lot funny, and perfect for a Doctor Who Christmas special. So check it out on Disney Plus. Enjoy the first full new Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, I took a different Doctor Who tact
Yeah, I
recently.
know you went the opposite
I
direction.
went and I watched all of the 60s Doctor Who that survives or backslash is in circulation. So every Hartnell episode, every Troughton episode, and the 2 Peter Cushing movies I've watched over the last few weeks. Yeah, and it's I am having a little bit of withdrawal. I think I've got a good plan to address that though. I think
Okay.
I'm going to be watching the remainder of Adam Animat Lives that I haven't seen since there's some Doctor Who connective tissue, at least with the personnel that were behind it. And it's a much more 60s vibe than even Who was. So
Kind of a very mod
yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
The ones that I've seen.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. For my Wolf of the Week, I want to draw some attention to this documentary that's been playing on Tubi and Pluto and some of the other free platforms. And Steve, if you can put the graphic up for this. This is Not on the Heap, the heavy metal saga of Lee Kerslake. Lee Kerslake was the longtime drummer for Uriah Heep, and he also importantly was the drummer for Blizzard of Oz, which was Ozzy's backing band for the first 2 albums, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, even though initially he wasn't credited on Diary of a Madman, and they go through that. Lee Kerslake died in 2020 from pancreatic cancer, and this is the film is happening as he is in the final stages of his fight with cancer. It's a little disconcerting when you think of metal, as a young man's game, and this is an older, obese man in his 70s that was responsible for some great drumming and especially harmony vocals. And it's a bit of a tearjerker, but it's also a bit of a triumph because he got to do everything he wanted to do on his bucket list. And they don't even have an insert saying he died on blah 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 blah. They just say Lee completed his bucket list, and I thought that was a very novel and sweet way of addressing that. If you're unfamiliar with Uriah Heep or even Ozzy, it doesn't matter. It's a very human tale. There's some very, very touching moments, like when he reunites with his first band from when he was a teenager. And also, he did play one last show with Uriah Heep on backing vocals, and he has to take a moment before he goes on stage. And I think that's the only time you really see him break down. But he seemed like a hell of a guy. His nickname was the Bear. So I think it's fitting for our show. And I'm glad that some of these documentaries are being made while we still have some people with us, because they're going quickly. Rock stars from the 60s at this point. It's very sad. And I think tales like his are important ones to be documented. And it's a really good film. Not on the Heap, the heavy metal saga of Lee Kerslake.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And so we're going to have a special final segment on this show. When we've done these movie episodes in the past, we've also made recommendations for works that we've enjoyed from comic books in the past involving the characters. I think we did this first one was Deadpool. Is that right?
Oh yeah, we did do the Deadpool ones. I remember that.
The first Captain Marvel, I think, was the best one that we did because we each took like a different phase of her her publication, so it was cool. But we got 2 pretty interesting arcs to provide recommendations for. So Steve, why don't we start with you?
Well, I was looking at the fact that I don't read a lot of Aquaman, or I hadn't read a lot of Aquaman in the past. I think when I was a kid and reading comics, like for some reason I got into the Atlantis Chronicles. I don't know why or how. I think it was because it was in the cheap box and it was like $4 for $1, or like the quarter box. I was like, hey, I'll pick this up. So I have the whole Atlantis Chronicles. But other than
Did you
that, I
ever go for
really
Aquaman Sword of Atlantis?
nope, didn't have it. Nope,
Nope.
no
Okay.
interest whatsoever in other
All right.
Aquaman for years and years and years. And after the New 52, I didn't really have much of a I don't know, much of a relationship with Aquaman as a character. Uh until and I had some interest through some of the storylines that they had in like the new 52 and the new to you 52 or DCU or whatever that was. But what I really enjoyed was when Kelly Sue DeConnick came on and started writing after Dan Abnett. I was like, I'm going to give it a shot for Kelly Sue. I'm going to pick up Kelly Sue's art. I want to read it. I want to see how she does with this character. Can she make me care about Aquaman as a comic book character? And she did. I was very surprised, that this had me hooked so easily. And essentially in this arc, it's a 6-part, five or six parts, 5 parts. Starting in issue 43, in volume 8 of Aquaman. You see here at the top it says all new Aquaman. In this, he has been left to basically float away in the ocean, completely devoid of any memories. He doesn't know who he is, doesn't know what's going on. Mira is looking for him, but the rest of Atlantis thinks that he's dead. And they're trying to basically marry Mira off to another person. But she's not the focus of this story. It is back to good old Arthur Curry, or as he is known by the fishermen in the strange island community that reels him in from the ocean. He's called Andy the entire time, which is great because he doesn't know who he is, and they figure, well, I see an A somewhere in your clothing here, so I'm guessing A for Andy. But he's basically pulled ashore, discovered by this group, the small sort of insular group in this odd island out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just a bunch of older men and women, and this one beautiful young woman. That they all kind of collectively treat as their daughter, that they keep sort of protected there on the island, where they go about their day fishing and mending nets and just sort of living a very simple life. And Andy, he realizes that there's something a little bit different about himself more than the other people. Like he knows that there's something a little bit off about all these older people, and there's something special about this whole island, but there's something he knows different about himself. And he's at this point, he's even forgotten how to swim. Like he doesn't really know what his connection is with the ocean, but he feels that there's something there, or that there should be something there. And over the course of the next several issues, he starts to rediscover himself, starts to rediscover his place in the ocean, but the ocean as sort of like the greater whole of the earth. So like this is Mother Ocean. This is the ocean that's giving life to everything, that gave life to everything. And the people on the island are helping him in that sort of philosophical journey, and that spiritual journey, to try and understand himself, because there's something about them that connects them to that original Mother Ocean, that idea of, the idea of the origin of life. They're very spiritual people. And you find out that really the reason for that is that they are old ocean gods from all sorts of different primitive religions, early religions, defunct societies and civilizations. And they've all just basically, they're paying for their sins, so to speak, by being left on this island together to just sort of, live a simple life as humans, immortal humans, but, as humans nonetheless. But also to protect Kylie, or Kaylee, who is also an aspect of the original Mother Ocean, or at least in this case, Mother of Salt, who's sort of like the evil aspect. I think it's Nana is how she goes in this one, but she's sort of like this kind of bringer of death as well. The ocean as sort of like a taker of life and not just a giver of life. And through this, the old gods are reawakened in their actual forms, and you can kind of see them on the screen here if you're watching, just sort of how varied the designs of these characters are, and also the evil sort of Kaylee as the mother of Salt here. But it's just absolutely well done. Rocha does such a beautiful job. The art in this arc is just great, especially in the earlier issues where his detail work is really, really nice.
But also
just sort of the composition.
when they introduced like the monster, which is called the Kalich,
Yeah,
that's like terrifying when that.
Oh, absolutely.
He does
when it kind of like grows to like its full form once it combines with Kaylee in the ocean and the mother's like it basically is like
so
dragon form. Just gorgeous. And like just the composition, you can see it here where Robson Rocha, this is sort of like the opening page of the first issue of this arc, with Kaylee sort of walking along the beach, and it's just just simple, gorgeous lines and character work, lots of flowing and water art, water motion kind of art, but very, very cool. Daniel Henriquez's inking and Sonny Cho's colors, they all work together and do a great job. And I think Kelly Sue herself does an amazing job writing this as almost an epic poem.
I wasn't as in love with it as you obviously are, but I did think one of the coolest things that Kelly Sue did was she takes Aquaman's generally considered silliest power, which is talking to fish, and makes it badass. That's his great strength as a hero, that he is a communicator. And I thought that was a really cool move. I did have to go over to the drawers, the bookshelves over there. I do have a copy of the trade that collects this, which is called Unspoken Water. But if you also see, it's bannered advanced reader copy, uncorrected proof. And this is one of the reasons why I really, really, really miss BookCon, because you get the free galleys. And this is the only time I've ever seen a DC Comics galley.
Oh, really?
Of the advanced reader copies. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen one. No, I lied. And I think I gave some to you of the Zoom books, the Zoom and Ink books. So I lied, but in terms of a standard trade, it's the only time I've ever seen.
Well, I'd say like the standard collected trade
from DC.
We have a couple comments here. Hassan says, "I agree that her run was really good." Dan Bryan actually is this collected? Yes, it is, Dan. And by the way, huge fan of Peter David's early issues of Fishman of Aquaman. Yeah. And I think before Kelly Sue, like right before Kelly Sue, Dan Abnett had it for a while.
Yeah, Dan Abnett had. I think Abnett. I think he took over after John's, and he was both New 52 and Rebirth.
I
think he moved into both. Yeah,
he was on it for a while.
He was on for a while.
Yeah. And the name of the collected one, Dan, is Unspoken Waters.
Yeah,
or Unspoken Water.
You'll get a copy. It just doesn't have the advanced reader copy uncorrected.
Yeah, but that's the cover.
So another reason I wanted to grab this was because the book that I'm going to talk about, the arc that I'm going to talk about, is not collected, and it makes no sense. And I'll show you why. In 1985, right towards the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, there was an Aquaman 4-issue miniseries, which basically was trying to shake things up. The character was the leader of the much maligned Justice League Detroit. He left his leadership of that and went back to Atlantis and went on a particular quest. And it was in these 4 absolutely beautifully illustrated issues. So Steve, you can show the covers here. The artist here is Craig Hamilton, and as you can see there, that's not comic art you see every day. Absolutely stunning character poses and depictions there. You have a mirror that's based on a very young Lucille Ball. I think that was a very nice touch. And the writer on this series was Neil Posner, who was DC's longtime creative art director. He was also Phil Jimenez's last partner. So with both Neil Posner and Hamilton, you had a writer and artist who were both LGBTQ plus in the late 80s. So Aquaman's wearing a different costume here. And the reason he's wearing that costume is it's camouflage. And that actually ties into something in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And Neil Posner was thanked in the end. So this is an element that carried over into the film. So where Aquaman is in this story is he had abdicated the rulership to Volko. For all you bear boys there, you actually have shirtless fat Volko waking up in bed. So there's some there for us boys there.
Do we have a picture of him anywhere?
No, I didn't select it, but I'll show you here. So Aquaman is going on a journey. The Trident has been stolen. And Volko cannot do any official acts without it. And there's in Aquaman's journey to retrieve the Trident, there are lost tribes and there are a bunch of other stuff. They fit a lot into 4 issues. Just basically know that Aquaman goes on a quest and he's successful in the quest, but his perspective of what Atlantis and Atlantis' surrounding cities are like changes. So beautiful covers. He also fights Ocean Master, brother that's there. Very nice recap of his origin in the 3rd issue. And then if you go to the 4th cover, just another absolutely stunning cover there by Craig Hamilton. Didn't do a lot of comic work. There's some issues of Fables, some issues of Starman. Did not do a lot of comic book work, but very, very detailed stuff here. And I have some individual pages here in the if I'm hoping what I'm going to describe here. We start off with a description of Atlantis in the DC universe. So as you see here, you have Arian in battle there, and as that it basically tells the tale of what Atlantis was like before it was sunk. Next cover is the next page is the actual introduction of the camouflage suit. And there's another page that I have here, which I really wanted to point out. Apart from Craig Hamilton's art, the inking by Steve Montano is beautiful throughout the entire series. Steve Montano basically inked all of Valentino's Guardians of the Galaxy, had a lot of Valiant credits, hasn't worked in comics in like 24 years. I don't know what he's up to. But he was a very, very, very stylized and very very good inker. The biggest crime is there's no shelf porn for this. This is a miniseries that has never been collected. You can get it digitally. It's part of DC Universe Infinite, so you can access it there. Why this has never been collected astounds me, because it's a beautifully executed art project, and it's also a very strong storyline, and give Aquaman a lot to do outside of what we've seen before with, of course there were political machinations in earlier arcs of his, particularly Death of a Prince in Adventure Comics in the 1970s, but they're at the forefront in this, and I just think this is a beautiful series, and you can get these issues fairly cheaply. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them in dollar bins, and if you do, grab them, because it's a very concise story, 4 issues, a beautiful execution. Love this arc.
Well, and it's interesting. Dan Bryan here, he owns these, which is great, and even Hassan coming in here, another great choice that you read when it was coming out.
When you think of some of the crap that has been reprinted, that this has not happened, especially at times when, let's face it, with DC Universe, there was a point where Aquaman was outselling X-Men. There was a point where Aquaman was outselling everything in the Marvel Universe when New 52 had those hot 8-9 months at the start. And that would have been a great time to get something like this out, and I still hope there's someday will be a hardcover of this, because it's beautifully executed and just real nice to look at.
I wonder if it's because it's not like powerhouse names attached to it. It's, not a powerhouse character necessarily, so
And also the camouflage suit proved very difficult for artists to draw. So they quickly went back to this is the reverse of Spidey's black outfit. It was which is like the easiest.
Everybody wanted to do the black outfit.
Yeah, it was the reverse of that. It's appeared a couple of times. In I think, not sure if it was Peter David's run. I think it may have been when Eric Larson took over in that Aquaman title. Right. It's appeared a couple of times, but and I just really would love to see a collected edition of this. And I'm glad to see
Hassan,
that they own it because it's really great.
Yeah, Hassan was saying he doesn't understand why it hasn't been collected yet, and I mean just hearing you talk about it, but I've never heard of this miniseries. I didn't know this miniseries existed, and the fact that it's got a primarily queer
and it's
creative team,
not necessarily a queer sensibility in the storytelling.
Well, yeah,
but maybe it's there. Let's put it that way. There's some sprinkles and stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, whether it is or not, I'm sure people can really read into it a lot. But I think it's, I think it's really interesting. It's like here's a creative team where both are LGBT, and it's just like, oh, okay, in 1986, on an Aquaman title. But no, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, and also this, this came out, in the same 2-year period as The Dark Knight Returns, as Wonder Woman with Perez, as Man of Steel by Byrne, of the reboot of The Flash as Wally West. There were a lot of characters that were being redefined, and this was contemporaneous with that, and I think is just as worthy in some ways as some of the other ones I mentioned.
Yeah. Dan mentions here, it would be cool to get an Aquaman Omni of limited series and story arcs. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff, especially like this period, because there's so little that's reprinted. There's a 13-issue series, which was an ongoing series, which has beautiful Kevin Maguire covers immediately, and then that was by Giffen. Giffen did Time and Tide. There's also a 5-issue miniseries which is drawn by Kurt Swan, which is a very is a very conventional artist, and that gives the storyline a dynamic. The three of us would buy it. Yeah,
3 of us would buy it. Yes, Brian. Yes, Dan. 3 of us would.
Yeah, so let's hope. DC, hope you're listening. You're not, but you can hope.
DC, can you hear us? Please put out an Aquaman omnibus.
All right, this wasn't so short an episode after all, about an hour and 15 or so. So thank you for joining me, Steve. I'm really glad we got to do this little bonus here of an episode.
The last one of 2023.
Last one of 2023, but it will also be the first audio episode of 2024 because we don't have any space left because you got to talk so much in the last 2 episodes, so I can't release it till the next.
I know there's so much. But at least this is a short one, so it's
at least it's a short one. And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will still be in theaters by January 1st. So that's when the audio will come out.
Excellent.
All right. So thank you again. We are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts to download. You can find us on many of the other podcatching platforms. We're on many of the other venues such as Blue Sky and X and
Instagram.
Threads and Instagram. We're on Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. Folks, I've been saying the same shit for 12 years, and it's very hard to shake this. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. And if you want to see this live stream archived, please go to our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. We'll be back with you in 2024. Take care, everyone.
Wolf.